his item to consider. So let's go.
Sorry. Yeah, I'd just like to raise in regards to the decision made by the council the previous week, and it's a response in regards to Te Whanganui Aotearoa, so the Taiphinua had their meeting after, excuse me, after the decision. So what they said, they were very disappointed in regards to the result. Obviously, it's gone through a process, and it's Katie Pye. It's got to, like him, it's got to go through a process. But I need to raise, obviously, the feeling from the meeting, which they did not support the decision that was made on that day. So just tabling that, because obviously I sit on the board and I need to reflect, obviously, their viewpoint on that, on the outcome. Yep.
Well, thank you for that, Peter. Obviously, we're not in debate on it, but
no, it's just good to put it out front, because if people don't say it, then it just festers away, and yeah. So that was that point, and so yeah, and the other point, so I didn't cover it because we never got through in that debate, and it was just about the REC stuff. Should I bring that up now?
Seasonal workers.
Yep. And I suppose it's only because we've had a lot of feedback, and no doubt council's had a lot of feedback, and we discussed it previously. And it was just around, and we support our Pacific whānau that are coming over, and the number, obviously, there's 2,000 coming over, but there's already the existing numbers that are here. And there's been discussion around the supports for local people, especially, I suppose, if we look at the high schools, and what is the industry in a whole doing to support those kids at school that are going to work in the sector, because obviously they're new potential base of clients that can work in that sector, but if they're on minimum wage, no transport. And I suppose I can speak to that because my son's doing it over the school holidays. So he said, hey, I'm going to go and work and do some thinning, and he's done. And I didn't know if he was going to last, but he has, and they said he's doing a good job. But then I look at the challenges for those kids that are going to school. He's like he's getting dropped off and picked up. There's a group of them going. But then it seems to be an imbalance between what the industry's providing for some and not for others. So that was my question, and I've looked at feedback from a lot of people, and he's on minimum wage, and then if you look at the working wage that other people are getting paid, and transport and all the rest that goes on, I suppose it's just about being fair in the process and looking after people within our local region and supporting them and creating a fair playing field. So, yeah, I mean, I know these people that work on the have orchards or are committed or working with that industry, but just my involvement with those individuals, and I'm talking about rangatahi coming out of that schooling environment, because I know a number of the kids are working in the orchards after they got the call, but yeah, very little support for them.
Look, I appreciate we're not, it's a minor item. However, there is a possibility for a response from Councillor Van Wyk, if you can.
Yep.
Yeah, I can respond. And I totally get that, what you're saying. You know, our industry is crying for more workers. And there is, of course, an understanding and a debate about living wage. So personally, I pay $21.60 for anyone who starts. I don't have them younger working in 16 years old because they just cannot actually concentrate that long. We don't provide transport, but we do provide food for them if need be, if they haven't got it themselves, because you can't work on an empty stomach. Of course, those who actually are supported in accommodation and transport, and if we're talking about seasonal labour from the Pacific, they leave family and home behind. And so they're often fathers and mothers who leave partners home with their children. And so there's an enormous sacrifice that they make for us, the industry, but also for themselves to actually better themselves. A lot of that money that they earn is being used for housing and education, which is a really good cause for them, because otherwise they would be missing out. But at the moment, I feel that actually there is the call that we put out to New Zealand students has been answered by New Zealand students, as well as Hawke's Bay students, as well as students from Auckland and Wellington. So there's actually a large number of students here. The worry of our industry, of course, is coming February when they all go back to uni. And some after Christmas, New Year will actually go on a holiday with parents as well. So they won't be available to continue that crucial work that we're doing. So there is definitely an upward trend of paying. Minimum wage is not acceptable any longer, especially for returnees. So an RSE worker that returns cannot be on a minimum rate. That's sort of a standard that we have set as an industry. They need to be rewarded for the time that they have already spent in the industry and the experience they've got. For students out of high school to pay more than the minimum rate, which is $18.41, is a lot of money. And then you look at the productivity you get out of them versus someone who actually is 23, 24, 25, or has been here for the last 4 years as an RSE. It's totally different. It's totally different. So there's a certain amount of time that they need to spend. So, but I do see, and I hear my colleagues saying that the minimum rate that we now pay is not necessarily the minimum rate that is actually set by law, but actually is minimum rate is actually set by government, not by government, but by actually the industry itself. And just by the 2,000 RSE workers that are coming, or supposedly coming, at a cost of $6,000 to $7,000 to an employer, is going to be 2280 something. That is the rate set by this government. That in itself is a bar that we all need to rise to, and we're having that discussion already now. So COVID-19 definitely is raising that bar and that level of paying as well. And then employers and growers need to decide whether that they can maintain that or whether they cannot.
Thank you, Jeff. That's useful.
Yeah, that's good. And I do support the RSE workers, but I suppose we got young, and I mean, my boy and other parents that are supporting their children to work over Christmas and that, and a lot of I know parents are driving their kids in, dropping them off at the orchard and going at night and picking them up. You would think the industry would be more coordinated and built that mechanism at the high school where a van turned up and picked up 10 students from the high school and then took
I'll give you
them to
one example. My business, I have one permanent staff member. Carl and myself run our business. And we only run 5 weeks of the year. We have a van.
Let's move on.
It's pretty hard, you know.
Let's move on. You've raised the issue. We've extended the time, so that's useful. Councillor Williams, you may not have had the opportunity to raise any additional items. Is there any minor item that you feel like raising?
There would be many, but no, I think I'll leave that. Thank you.
All right. Look, let's move on. We've got one item left. It's in public excluded. Can I have a mover to move into public excluded, please? Councillor Foley, Councillor Van Beek. All those in favour of moving to public excluded will say aye.
Aye.
Those against will say no. That's carried. We're now in public excluded.